The silent preparation. The Krillian Dominion had existed for 8,000 years. Their empire stretched across 47 galaxies. They had subjugated more than 5,000 intelligent species. Their military doctrine was simple and effective. Locate a world with resources. Send overwhelming force. Destroy resistance within hours. Occupy and exploit for centuries. No civilization had ever successfully defended against them. No planet had ever made them retreat. When their deep space scanners detected Earth, the analysis took less than 3 hours. The planet was unremarkable. It orbited an average yellow star in a quiet spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. The dominant species called themselves humans. They had only left their home world 60 years prior. Their technology was crude. Their fastest vessels took months to reach their neighboring planets. Their weapons were chemical and nuclear, primitive by galactic standards. The Krillian Strategic Command reviewed the data with casual indifference. Earth possessed useful minerals. Its water was abundant. The human population could provide labor for mining operations. The conquest would take less than a day. Perhaps only hours. High Commander Zethus was assigned to lead the operation. He considered it an insult to his rank and experience. Zethus had conquered 83 worlds personally. He had led fleets against species far more advanced than these humans. He had destroyed civilizations that had mastered faster than light travel centuries before humanity discovered fire. Leading an assault against Earth felt like punishment duty. Nevertheless, orders were orders. The Dominion assembled a fleet of 12,000 warships for the operation. It was excessive for such a weak target, but the Dominion believed in overwhelming displays of power. What the Krillians did not know was that humanity had been waiting for them. Not for the Krillians specifically, but for someone like them. Humanity had been preparing for 56 years. On December 14, 1967, a research vessel named the Aurora was conducting geological surveys in the Arctic Circle. Dr. Sarah Chen was the lead scientist on the expedition. She was studying ice core samples when her equipment detected something unusual. There was a massive metallic object buried 800 meters beneath the ice. The readings made no sense. The metal was not iron or steel. It was not any element known to human science. Sarah convinced her team to investigate. They spent 3 weeks drilling through the ice. What they found changed everything. It was a ship. Not a human ship. The vessel was 400 meters long and shaped like a crescent blade. Its hull was made of a dark purple metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface. The ship was damaged. Massive holes had been torn through its structure. Whatever battle it had fought, it had lost. Sarah and her team entered the vessel through one of the ruptures. Inside they found technology that should not have existed. Computers with no visible power source. Weapons built into the walls. Navigation systems displaying star maps of galaxies millions of light years away. And in the command center, they found 3 bodies. The aliens were tall, nearly 3 meters in height. Their skin was pale blue and covered in fine scales. They had 6 limbs, 4 arms and 2 legs. Their heads were elongated with large black eyes. They had been dead for approximately 2,000 years based on the ice formation around the ship. But one of them was different. One of them had something clutched in its hand. A device no bigger than a human fist. When Sarah carefully removed the device from the frozen fingers, it activated. A holographic display appeared in the air. The alien began to speak. Somehow the device translated its words into English. The message was a warning. The alien identified itself as Navigator Thel of the Etherian Republic. Its people had been explorers and peacekeepers. They had discovered thousands of worlds and helped hundreds of species develop peaceful civilizations. Then they encountered the Krillian Dominion. The Krillians were conquerors. They showed no mercy. They destroyed the Etherian homeworld and hunted the survivors across space. Thel's ship had been fleeing when it crashed on Earth. The message continued. Thel explained that the Krillians would eventually find Earth. It might take decades or centuries, but they would come. When they arrived, humanity would face extinction unless they were prepared. The ship contained technology that could help. Weapons. Shields. Engines capable of faster than light travel. Thel's final words were clear. Study everything. Learn quickly. Build in secret. Be ready for the day the Krillians arrive. The message ended. Sarah stood in the frozen ship holding the device. Her hands were shaking. She looked at her team. Everyone was silent. They all understood what this meant. They had just learned that humanity was not alone in the universe. And the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Sarah made the only decision she could. She contacted the United States government. Within 48 hours, the Arctic site was surrounded by military personnel. Within a week, representatives from every major nation on Earth had arrived. The ship and everything in it was classified at the highest possible level. The public would not be told. The world would continue as normal. But in secret, humanity would prepare. Project Sentinel was established on January 7, 1968. Its mission was simple. Use the alien technology to build defenses capable of protecting Earth from extraterrestrial invasion. Funding came from every participating nation. The brightest scientists were recruited quietly. Engineers, physicists, weapons designers, computer programmers. People who could keep secrets. People who understood that failure meant the end of human civilization. Dr. Sarah Chen became the first director of Project Sentinel. She recruited a young military officer named Marcus Stone to handle security and strategic planning. Marcus was 29 years old, a decorated veteran, and fiercely intelligent. He understood that this project would consume his entire life. He accepted without hesitation. The work began immediately. Teams of scientists studied every system on the alien ship. The technology was incredibly advanced. Progress was slow. Many concepts were completely foreign to human science. But humanity had one advantage. Humans were adaptable. Humans were creative. Humans refused to give up. By 1975, they had figured out the alien power systems. By 1983, they had built the first prototype shield generator. By 1991, they had reverse-engineered the faster-than-light engine. By 2003, they had constructed the first human warship using hybrid human-alien technology. By 2015, they had built an entire fleet. The work was done in absolute secrecy. Facilities were built deep underground in remote locations. On Antarctica. In the Australian outback. Beneath the Sahara Desert. Under the ocean floors. Even on the dark side of the moon after humanity established a permanent lunar colony. The official space program continued openly, appearing slow and limited. But the real space program was hidden. Massive construction projects in the asteroid belt. Weapons platforms disguised as satellites. An entire military fleet camouflaged in orbital debris fields. Thousands of people worked on Project Sentinel over the decades. Most never knew the full scope of what they were building. Compartmentalization was essential for security. A scientist in Brazil might work on shield algorithms without knowing that an engineer in Japan was building the physical generators. A pilot training in Nevada might fly simulators without realizing that real warships existed on Mars. By 2023, Project Sentinel had grown into the largest secret operation in human history. General Marcus Stone was now 85 years old. He had spent 55 years preparing for an invasion that might never come. Dr. Sarah Chen had passed away in 2019, but not before seeing humanity build a defensive capability that would have amazed navigator Thel. The project had cost trillions of dollars. It had required the cooperation of nations that were often enemies on the surface. But it had succeeded. Earth had a hidden defense fleet of 4,000 warships. Advanced weapons that could tear through any known shielding technology. Planetary defense grids that could withstand sustained bombardment. Sensor networks that monitored every approach to the solar system. Humanity was ready. And then on March 3, 2024, the sensors detected them. 12,000 ships entering the solar system from deep space. The vessels were configured for war. Their energy signatures matched descriptions from navigator Thel's warning. The Krillian Dominion had finally found Earth. President Elizabeth Morgan was in a meeting when the alert came through. She was 52 years old and had been briefed on Project Sentinel the day she took office. She had visited the hidden facilities. She had met with General Stone. She had understood that this day might come during her administration. Now it had arrived. The president immediately activated Protocol Omega. Across the planet, hidden facilities came online. Millions of tons of weapons and equipment that had been waiting in darkness for decades began to power up. On the Moon, Mars, and throughout the asteroid belt, camouflaged warships shed their disguises and prepared for battle. General Marcus Stone was brought to the primary command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. His body was old but his mind remained sharp. High Commander Zethus watched Earth from the bridge of his flagship. The planet looked peaceful. Primitive satellites orbited slowly. A few basic space stations hung in low orbit. There was a small colony on the Moon with perhaps 500 inhabitants. Nothing that suggested military capability. Zethus felt confident. This conquest would be even easier than expected. He opened a communication channel to Earth. His message was standard. Surrender within 24 hours. Deliver all resources and labor to Krillian control. Resistance would result in total annihilation. Compliance would allow some humans to survive as workers. The ultimatum was non-negotiable. President Morgan received the message. She sat in the command center surrounded by military leaders and scientists. General Stone sat beside her in his wheelchair. The old soldier smiled slightly. He had been waiting for this moment his entire adult life. The president composed her response carefully. She thanked Commander Zethus for his message. She politely declined his terms. She informed him that Earth was well defended and suggested he reconsider his attack. She gave him 12 hours to withdraw from the solar system. After that, Earth would take defensive action. Zethus read the human response with amusement. Defended? These primitive creatures thought they could defend themselves against the Krillian Dominion? It was absurd. He shared the message with his officers. They laughed together. The humans did not understand what they were facing. Soon they would learn. Soon they would burn. The commander ordered his fleet to assume attack formation. 12,000 ships spread out in a massive sphere around Earth. Every weapon system charged. Every shield activated. In 12 hours, the bombardment would begin. Zethus expected the humans to surrender before then. Most species did once they saw the fleet in full battle array. But if the humans insisted on fighting, the Krillians would oblige them. Deep in the command center, General Stone watched the Krillian fleet positioning itself. He had studied their tactics for decades based on Thel's data. He knew exactly what they would do. He looked at President Morgan. They will not withdraw, Marcus said quietly. They have never withdrawn. Not once in 8,000 years. They think they have already won. President Morgan nodded. She had known this would be the response. She looked at the displays showing Earth's hidden fleet. 4,000 ships ready to launch. Weapons that the Krillians had never encountered. Technology that would shock them. Then we show them, Elizabeth said, that humanity is not like the other species they have conquered. She gave the order. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, Project Sentinel fully activated for the first time. The weapons that had been built in secret for 56 years were about to be revealed. Humanity had prepared in silence. Now humanity would defend with strength. The 12 hours began counting down. Neither side would back down. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The reckoning. The 12 hours passed in tense silence. On Earth, billions of people went about their daily lives unaware that an alien armada surrounded their planet. The governments had decided against causing panic. If Project Sentinel failed, knowing about the invasion would not help anyone. If it succeeded, there would be time for explanations later. High Commander Zethus stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest warship ever constructed by the Krillian Empire. 5 kilometers long with weapons capable of cracking a planet's crust. Around him, his crew worked efficiently at their stations. They had done this hundreds of times before. Conquest was routine for them. Status report, Zethus commanded. His tactical officer responded immediately. All ships in position, Commander. Weapons charged to full capacity. Shields at maximum strength. We are ready to commence bombardment. Zethus looked at the chronometer. The human deadline had expired 3 minutes ago. There had been no surrender transmission from Earth. No begging for mercy. No desperate pleas for negotiation. The silence was unusual but ultimately meaningless. Defiance without power was just suicide. Begin the attack, Zethus ordered. Target their major population centers first. I want them to understand the cost of refusal. Across the Krillian fleet, 12,000 warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons that could vaporize mountains lanced toward Earth. Missiles that could destroy cities by the dozens streaked through space. It was enough firepower to sterilize the entire planet's surface within an hour. It was overwhelming force designed to break any resistance instantly. The weapons struck something 400 kilometers above Earth's surface. There was a flash of brilliant blue light that spread across the entire planet like a shimmering dome. Every Krillian weapon stopped at that barrier. Energy beams dispersed harmlessly. Missiles detonated without reaching their targets. Nuclear warheads exploded against the shield, creating beautiful patterns of light but causing zero damage. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, every alarm began sounding at once. Zethus stared at his displays in disbelief. The humans had shields. Not primitive deflector technology. Not simple energy barriers. This was a quantum-locked defensive grid that existed partially outside normal space. It was technology that even the Krillians had not fully mastered. Impossible, Zethus whispered. Our intelligence said they were primitive. They should not have shields at all, let alone shields of this sophistication. His science officer was frantically analyzing the data. Commander, these shields are utilizing principles I have never seen before. The energy distribution is perfect. There are no weak points. No fluctuations. It is as if the entire planet is wrapped in solidified spacetime. Zethus felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. His fleet was the finest in the Dominion. His weapons were the most advanced available. Yet they could not even touch the planet they had come to conquer. He pushed the feeling aside. The Krillians did not fail. They adapted and overcame. Concentrate all fire on a single point, Zethus commanded. Overwhelm their shields through sustained bombardment. They cannot maintain that level of defense forever. The Krillian fleet adjusted its strategy. All 12,000 ships focused their weapons on one location above the Pacific Ocean. The combined firepower was staggering. Enough to destroy a small moon. The energy struck the shield and the blue barrier rippled slightly. For a moment, Zethus thought they were making progress. Then the shield stabilized. The ripples vanished. The barrier remained intact. After 30 seconds of maximum bombardment, the human shields showed no signs of weakening. Zethus realized with growing horror that his fleet might not be able to break through at all. "Commander," his sensor officer called out urgently. "I am detecting massive energy signatures emerging from multiple locations. On Earth's surface, on their moon, on the planet they call Mars. And throughout the asteroid belt." "What kind of energy signatures?" Zethus demanded. "Ship signatures, Commander. Thousands of them." The displays updated. Zethus watched as ships began appearing around his fleet. They emerged from camouflaged positions that his sensors had completely missed. They phased into normal space from locations that should have been empty. Within 90 seconds, 4,000 human warships surrounded the Krillian armada. The human ships were not like anything in the Krillian database. They were sleek and angular, built with geometry that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Their hulls were dark but seemed to contain depth, as if the ships existed partially in another dimension. Energy readings from the vessels were off the scale. Each human ship was generating power equivalent to 10 Krillian warships. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, silence fell. Zethus and his crew stared at the impossible sight before them. The primitive species they had come to conquer had a fleet that rivaled their own in size and appeared to vastly exceed it in technology. "Get me a weapons analysis," Zethus said, his voice tight. "I need to know what we are facing." Before his tactical officer could respond, one of the human ships moved. It was smaller than the others, perhaps 800 meters long, but it accelerated with impossible speed. Within 2 seconds, it crossed 50,000 kilometers and positioned itself directly in front of the Eternal Dominion. That maneuver should have been impossible. Nothing could accelerate that fast without being torn apart by its own inertia. The human ship opened a communication channel. A human male appeared on the display. He was wearing a dark blue military uniform. His face was calm and controlled. Behind him, Zethus could see a sophisticated command center with technology that made the Krillian bridge look outdated. "I am Captain James Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Ship Defiant," the human said. "You were warned to leave our solar system. You chose to attack instead. That was a mistake." Zethus felt rage building inside him. How dare this primitive creature speak to him with such confidence? "I am High Commander Zethus of the Krillian Dominion. You are facing the greatest military force in the known universe. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Captain Rodriguez smiled slightly. It was not a friendly expression. "Commander, your fleet fired on my home world. You attempted to kill billions of innocent people. We do not negotiate with those who attack us without provocation. We eliminate them." The communication ended. Before Zethus could issue orders, the Defiant fired. A beam of crimson energy lanced from the ship's forward array. It struck the Eternal Dominion's shields and punched through them like they did not exist. The beam carved through 400 meters of the flagship's hull in less than a second. Critical systems exploded. Half the bridge crew died instantly as atmosphere vented into space. Zethus was thrown from his command chair. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing off the damaged sections. Backup life support activated. The commander struggled to his feet, ears ringing from the explosive decompression. One shot. The humans had penetrated his flagship's shields with one shot. "All ships," Zethus shouted into the fleet-wide channel. "Engage the enemy. Destroy them all." The Krillian fleet responded. 12,000 warships opened fire on the 4,000 human vessels. Space filled with weapons fire. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, kinetic projectiles. Everything the Krillians had. It was the largest military engagement in their empire's history. The human ships moved through the barrage like dancers. They dodged weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. Their shields absorbed hits that should have destroyed them. And they returned fire with devastating accuracy. Every human weapon found its target. Every shot penetrated Krillian defenses. Captain James Rodriguez sat in the command chair of the Defiant, watching the battle unfold on his displays. He felt no pleasure in the destruction. He felt no excitement. He felt only grim determination. These invaders had threatened his home. They had tried to murder his species. Now they would learn the cost of that decision. "Helm, bring us about," James ordered. Target that cluster of enemy cruisers at bearing 273. Weapons, use the Void Lances. Full spread. The Defiant rotated smoothly and fired. 6 beams of dark energy shot forward. When they struck the Krillian ships, the vessels simply ceased to exist. The Void Lances did not destroy matter. They erased it from spacetime entirely. 6 Krillian cruisers vanished as if they had never been built. Across the battlefield, the human fleet demonstrated similar devastating capability. Ships equipped with singularity cannons fired projectiles that contained miniature black holes. When they detonated, they pulled dozens of enemy ships into gravitational collapse. Vessels with phase disruptors fired weapons that destabilized molecular bonds, causing Krillian warships to simply fall apart at the atomic level. The battle lasted 7 minutes. In that time, the Krillian Dominion fleet was systematically annihilated. 12,000 warships reduced to debris and energy signatures. The human fleet suffered 0 casualties. Not one Earth ship was destroyed. Only 14 sustained minor damage that was already being repaired by their automated systems. High Commander Zethus watched from the shattered bridge of his flagship as his fleet died around him. It was incomprehensible. The Krillian Dominion had never lost a battle. Not in 8,000 years. They had conquered galaxies. They had destroyed species far older and more advanced than humanity should have been. Yet these humans had obliterated his entire fleet in minutes. How? Zethus said aloud. How is this possible? A communication channel opened. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the one functioning display left on the bridge. Behind him, Zethus could see the Defiant's crew working calmly. They looked like they had just completed a training exercise, not the greatest military victory in their species' history. You want to know how, Commander? James said. 56 years ago, one of your victims left us a warning. They told us you would come eventually. They gave us the foundation to build our defenses. We took that gift and dedicated 3 generations to preparing for this day. While your empire conquered worlds, we studied and built in secret. While you grew arrogant from endless victory, we became strong through patient preparation. Zethus said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had led his fleet into a trap of his own making. The Krillians had underestimated Earth because every other species they had encountered was helpless before them. That arrogance had destroyed them. Your flagship is the only vessel we left operational, Rodriguez continued. You will return to your empire. You will tell them what happened here. And you will deliver a message. Earth is protected. Humanity will not tolerate aggression. Any force that approaches our system with hostile intent will be destroyed. We seek peace with all species, but we will defend ourselves without mercy. The Defiant moved away, leaving the crippled Eternal Dominion floating alone among the debris of its fleet. Around Earth, the human warships began disappearing again, returning to their hidden positions. The quantum shield around the planet remained active, shimmering softly in the sunlight. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Elizabeth Morgan watched the displays with tears running down her face. Beside her, General Marcus Stone sat silently in his wheelchair. The old soldier's eyes were closed. A peaceful smile rested on his weathered face. General? Elizabeth said quietly. She reached out and touched his hand. Marcus Stone did not respond. He had passed away sometime during the battle. His heart had simply stopped. The man who had dedicated 55 years of his life to protecting Earth had witnessed humanity's victory and then slipped away peacefully. His last sight had been the salvation of his species. Elizabeth held the old soldier's hand for a long moment. Thank you, Marcus, she whispered. Thank you for everything. Across Earth, the news finally broke. The governments could no longer hide what had happened. The story of Project Sentinel became public. The world learned about the alien warning in 1967, the decades of secret preparation, the thousands of people who had worked in silence to protect humanity. There was shock and anger at the secrecy, but there was also overwhelming gratitude. Dr. Sarah Chen's name became known to every human alive. General Marcus Stone was honored as one of the greatest heroes in human history. The scientists and engineers who had built the defense fleet were celebrated. Humanity had faced extinction and survived because people had worked together across generations to prepare for a threat they might never face. In the weeks that followed, Earth's defensive capabilities remained on full alert. But no new threats appeared. The message had been received across the galaxy. A broadcast had been sent from Earth to every known star system. It was simple and clear. Humanity was no longer hiding. Earth was protected by technology that surpassed most galactic civilizations. Peaceful contact would be welcomed. Aggression would be met with overwhelming force. 6 months later, the first peaceful alien delegation arrived at Earth. They represented the Galactic Assembly, an alliance of 300 species who sought cooperation rather than conquest. They had heard about the destruction of the Krillian fleet. They wanted to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. They wanted to learn how such a young species had achieved such advanced technology. President Morgan met with the alien ambassadors. She explained that humanity had been fortunate to receive help from a fallen friend. She spoke of Navigator Thel and the Etherian Republic. She made clear that Earth honored that sacrifice by refusing to become conquerors themselves. Humanity would share knowledge and seek peace, but would never allow anyone to threaten the innocent again. The alien ambassadors were impressed. In a galaxy where the strong typically dominated the weak, humanity had chosen a different path. They had become powerful not through conquest but through preparation. They had used their strength not to attack others but to defend themselves. It was a rare philosophy, and one the Galactic Assembly respected deeply. Earth joined the Assembly as an equal member. Human technology, especially defensive systems, became highly valued. The quantum shields that protected Earth were adapted to protect other worlds from aggression. The weapons that had destroyed the Krillian fleet were shared with species who needed to defend themselves from threats. Humanity became known not as warriors but as guardians. The Krillian Dominion never again approached human space. The empire that had conquered for 8,000 years had finally met a species they could not defeat. The story of Earth's defense spread throughout their territory. Some Krillian worlds began to question the wisdom of endless conquest. If one small planet could destroy their greatest fleet, perhaps the Dominion's way was not as invincible as they had believed. High Commander Zethus returned to the Krillian capital world in disgrace. He delivered Earth's message to the Imperial Council. Some council members wanted to assemble an even larger fleet for revenge. Zethus advised against it. He had seen what the humans could do. He had watched his fleet die in 7 minutes. He told the council that humanity was not an enemy they could defeat through force. The council did not punish Zethus for his failure. The loss of 12,000 ships was devastating, but the commander had brought back valuable intelligence. The Krillians now knew there were species in the universe who could resist them. It was a humbling lesson, and one that would reshape their entire civilization over the coming decades. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal. The defense fleet remained operational but mostly hidden again. Project Sentinel continued, now working openly with the global scientific community. Humanity had proven itself capable of defending against the worst the galaxy could offer. Now humans could focus on building rather than hiding, on growing rather than fearing. In a cemetery outside Washington, D.C., a simple gravestone marked the resting place of General Marcus Stone. Visitors came every day to leave flowers and pay their respects. The inscription was brief. He kept watch so that we could sleep safely. Beside his grave was another stone for Dr. Sarah Chen. Her inscription read, "She saw the future and gave us hope." Both of them had devoted their entire lives to protecting a species that could not know what they were doing. Both had died knowing their work had succeeded. Their names would be remembered as long as humanity existed, symbols of dedication, sacrifice, and the power of preparation. Humanity had been tested and had emerged victorious. Not through violence or aggression, but through wisdom, patience, and the willingness to work together across generations. Earth had been attacked by an empire that had never known defeat. And in 7 minutes, humanity had shown the galaxy that there are forces stronger than conquest. Preparation, unity, and the determination to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The message was clear. Earth would not seek war. But Earth would never again be easy prey. Humanity had come of age among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.